Greetings, Central Atlantic Conference. Today the calendar says it's Easter Sunday, yet it hardly feels like it, doesn't it? I have on some Easter clothes today, but I won't be heading into my car to go to worship at one of our congregations. And there won't be a family gathering at my mom's, noting that this will be the first without my father. And my spouse and I will not engage in our customary Easter exchange of baskets with more candy than we really ever need. I never fathomed that Easter 2020 in my house, in your house, in our churches, in places across the world would be anything like this. And I strongly suspect neither did you. When I asked a dear friend of mine who lives in the East Village in Manhattan, New York, what it is like living in her neighborhood these days, she responded to me that it is like living in a very bad science fiction movie. That sounds quite right, doesn't it? The problem is that it's not only a movie. It's real for all of us. But the calendar says that today is still Easter. It has no idea that we're living in the grip of COVID-19. It has no clue that we are in a pandemic that seems to pervade and disrupt everything, everywhere. The calendar does not have the faintest inkling that there is so much pain, so much suffering, so much sorrow, so much grief. All the calendar knows is that it is April 12th, 2020, Easter Sunday, period. Nonetheless, perhaps in some respects, what the calendar doesn't know prompted me to share two things that I think it's important for us to remember today, my friends. One is that Easter is far less a day than it is a way of life. Easter is a way of life that spiritually speaks to the significance of the events of that first Easter day. Because Jesus trusted in God with his very life, all the pain, the suffering, the agony, the misery, the torture he endured, even death itself, in the final analysis, all that did not win. God did. And I believe that is no less true this Easter day for us as the body of Christ. Yet we are experiencing in the face of this pandemic pain and suffering and agony and torment and sorrow and grief and misery and even death itself. Yet if we live in the way that Jesus did, trusting God with our very lives, none of these things will win. God will win. Love will win, as it always has. My siblings, the calendar may know Easter as a day, but in fullness, Easter is a way of life. In fact, it's a way of life that leads to God winning. And related to this is a second thing to remember about this Easter day. And that is that Easter is far less a celebration than it is a proclamation. Please don't get me wrong. I certainly prefer an Easter that is far more publicly celebratory than today. Yet a part of me says that perhaps in all of this there's a teaching, perhaps even a blessing in all of this somewhere. Perhaps this Easter is telling us not to get so wrapped up in the celebration of Easter that we lose the spiritual sight of the proclamation of Easter. That's at the heart of what this day is all about. Whether we have an Easter basket filled with the grass we purchased at Walgreens, the Easter proclamation is that he lives. Whether we have an Easter dinner with ham or lamb or fried chicken and all the trimmings and dessert or not, it doesn't matter. He lives. Whether we boil or decorate eggs for an Easter egg hunt or not, he lives. And whether we even go to church sanctuaries to sing Christ the Lord is risen today, or sing it by Zoom or Facebook Live or whatever, it doesn't matter. The proclamation is that he lives. It's a different holiday. But today reminds me of my favorite Christmas television tradition, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, where the Grinch did all he could to steal Christmas by stealing all the trappings of celebration. I don't mean in the least to minimize the severity of COVID-19, but this pandemic has felt awfully Grinch-like, hasn't it? Stealing in so many ways the things that we associate with Easter. Yet Central Atlantic Conference, let me remind us that nothing, even this pandemic, can take the meaning of Easter away from me. It cannot take the proclamation of Easter away from us if we know in the depths of our souls that the centrality of Easter is located in the proclamation. Against all that's in the world that leads not to life, he lives. Perhaps we can take a cue from the residents of Whoville. And despite all that is around us today, join in that chorus that they sang at the end of the story that says, Wahoo Dore, welcome Easter, Easter Day. Because the day is not about the trappings of the celebration. When you finally get down to it, it's about the essence of the proclamation. Finally, dear Central Atlantic Conference, I share with you something shared with me with permission by one whom I consider to be a saint in our midst, the Reverend Ann Holmes, one of so many ministers we are blessed to have in our conference. Ann is a member of our conference board of directors. It was in a recent gathering of a task force of our board, the convener asked those what we were learning about COVID-19. And Ann's response sent a spiritual shiver up my spine. What Ann said was this. She said that she was understanding that resurrection is real. Please, Central Atlantic Conference, make no mistake about this. Resurrection is real. Don't be fooled by everything you see, everything you read, and everything you hear. Resurrection is real. Resurrection is real in the budding of trees and the blossoming of flowers you might see on a daily walk. Resurrection is real in the neighbors and friends and relatives asking us for anything we might need. Resurrection is real in the heroics of those working in emergency rooms, operating rooms, patient rooms, clinics, urgent care centers, drive-through testing centers. Resurrection is real in the bravery of everyday people who summon up the courage to go to work every day in grocery stores, post offices, bus depots, subway stations, delivery facilities, performing essential tasks at all levels of government offices. Resurrection is real in those who are helping those who did not have much before this pandemic and who have nothing now because of this pandemic. Resurrection is so real in our church congregations who are discovering new ways of worship and being in relationship to one another, thanks to the miracle of technology. Make no mistakes, Central Atlantic Conference. Resurrection is real and its power is in full effect. Resurrection power cannot be subject to a stay-at-home order. Resurrection power cannot be quarantined. Resurrection power cannot be confined to a distance of 6 feet or more. Resurrection is real. Resurrection is here. Resurrection is now. Resurrection is everywhere. And today, this Easter, resurrection is ours to proclaim and live. My dear friends, despite much that says otherwise, it's still Easter. May you and yours this day be filled with the love and joy and peace and certain hope that comes to us thanks to the risen Christ.